Okay. Hi, everybody. Welcome to tonight's Wireside chat. We're thrilled tonight to have Gabino Iglesias with us. And as usual, I'm joined by my co-host, Melissa Hart. We've got two of the best instructors in the Online MFA program here tonight. And as for me, I'm the dean. I teach sometimes too. But I don't know if I'm as in the lofty company of these two wonderful instructors. All right, let's get to, I'm going to ask a few questions of Gabino and maybe even of Melissa, and then we'll take your questions. At the top of your screen, you should see a Q&A button. If you type that or click on that, you will come to the Q&A window, and you can just ask your questions there, and we'll do our best to surface them. You can also, if you can't get in there, leave them in the chat. We'll be trying to monitor the chat as well, but it's difficult when there's so many people. But the chat is open, so feel free to make use of it. So, Gabino. Gabino has been an instructor here for quite a while. He's been a novelist and writer who's received a lot of acclaim, a lot of attention from his first book, which was what? Coyote Songs, I believe was the name of the first book.
Oh, the first one? Let's see. You're making me feel very old right now, Paul. First book was Godmouth, which no one read. And most people don't even know it exists, which is the thing that tends to happen to some books. Zero Saints came after that, and then Coyote Songs came out, and that's the one that started I don't know, making noise.
Yes,
getting
well,
a little bit of attention.
That was when I first heard of you. That's when you first came to my attention as like somebody to watch. You got on the radar with that book, and then your
so you got me a
subsequent
job.
and then your subsequent book, which just recently came out, The Devil Takes You Home. That seems to be the book that really was your breakthrough so far. I mean, you really hit a wider audience. You were reviewed more widely than with Coyote Songs, and your work received a lot of acclaim and in some areas a little controversy. And we'll talk about all that. You were nominated for at least two prestigious awards, the Stoker and the Edgar. And the Stoker is coming up in about a month, isn't it? Or later this month?
Yeah, in June.
Yeah.
Something. Yeah.
Yeah, pretty soon. And unfortunately, you didn't win the Edgar, but it's still quite a, the cliche goes, quite an honor to be nominated. But in this case, I think it really was an honor to be nominated for that award.
It was.
So
I'm stoked. Yeah.
You're stokered.
I'm stokered too. Yeah.
Yeah. So the kind of the ostensible topic of our discussion tonight is like, and let me just mention too that Melissa also had a book that came out recently, Daisy Woodworm Saves the World. And that book also did quite well and received a number of, at least one award nomination that I'm aware of, and also received its share of controversy. So we're going to get into all that, but first I want to just ask Gabino, because like I said, the topic of our conversation tonight is how does a writer navigate success? How do you, I mean, we all want success, we all wish for it, then it comes. And then what do? How do you keep your balance, maintain your equilibrium, and stay true to what got you to this point in the first place? So I guess what I'd like to ask you is, like, over the course of your career, what have been some of those moments where you felt like, this success is good, but there's also a little bit of a threat to who I am. I'm a little off my normal balance. And how did you retain that balance? And is that something that you felt with this most recent book?
I think I felt a little bit of that with every single book. Like we're all obsessed with getting published, and then that happens the first time, and then suddenly you go, my book is out, I'm a published author, and then someone goes, congrats, no one cares, now you have to sell it. So you get you get a new job as a PR person, and you have to be your own marketing team. And welcome to the wonderful hell of social media. And no one's going to call you, so you have to go out and try to do events with libraries, and you have to set up your own readings. And every book except The Devil Takes You Home was with an indie press. So wherever I went, I had to carry my own books. Especially indie bookstores are not going to buy your book outright if they can't return it. So I would travel very light on the clothing, and my bags would be packed with my own books because you want to sell as many of them as possible. And then with each new book brings some kind of new challenge. My first book was entirely in English, and that was fantastic. But then when Zero Saints came out, I used a lot of Spanglish in that book for the first time, and people were angry. It's like, how dare you write, in Spanglish for an American audience? Write American, and you start getting angry emails, and you learn how to navigate that part. And then with this last one, it was like, all right, so I'm moving up a little bit. This is a different type of thing. I have more time as a writer. I have a marketing team for the first time in my life. I have galleys for the first time in my life. I'm doing an official book tour that I don't have to pay for the first time in my life.
You don't have to pack all your books into your
I don't have
suitcase.
to. No. It's like magic. I show up and the books are already there.
Wow.
Yeah, and then you get different challenges. I this time around it was a selection for the Book of the Month Club, which is an amazing opportunity, and it got me a lot of new readers. But here's the thing: let's say that you tend to keep your family gatherings to maybe say 10 people, and there's a plate, that you like to prepare for your family, and out of those 10 people, chances are there might be one or two who don't like this particular recipe of yours. So if you do a big event in your neighborhood, and instead of 10 people, you bring in 1,000 people to eat your food, then the number of people who don't enjoy that plate is going to increase as well. So Book of the Month Club got me some of my favorite hate mail, questioning if I had a mother or if I'd been raised by wolves, offering me counseling, if like, I'll help you pay for counseling. Obviously I need Jesus in my life, so a lot of people wrote to me saying that I needed Jesus. And so you move away from the marketing team, PR person, I have to carry my own books, and then you tackle the new thing, which is an unheard of amount of hate mail. But I think with each new book, the good usually outweighs the bad. So you learn to navigate that particular new slice of hell, and then you move forward and you focus on writing the next one, and discovering what comes next.
Well, I mean, surely you must have received a lot of fan mail as well, not just hate mail.
Oh no, there's fan mail in there, but I think I don't know. There's this idea that maybe authors don't want to hear about your review if it's very positive. So there's always people who tag you, who reach out and say, I'm a Latinx writer, and I'm glad that there's representation, and thank you for doing the stuff that you do with the Spanish. But when people hate something, then they feel like they have to communicate it. They have to let you know.
Right.
Which is
Especially if they're doing it for your own good, right? Like you need to find Jesus, right? So that
exactly, it's free. I'm helping you, which is why I always encourage writers who get a little depressed when that happens. Take your favorite 5 or 10 novels and go on Goodreads and read the 1-star reviews for your favorite books, and you will realize that people are very vocal about stuff that they hate. And in some instances, you will get a 1-star review, and then for your favorite novel, and then you'll go in very curious about what happened, and then you will find something like 1 star because Amazon said it would be here on Thursday and it got here on a Monday. And you're like, what does that have to do with the writing itself?
Take that, Fyodor Dostoevsky.
Right. Exactly. So it's one day at a time.
So what I'm gathering from what you just said is that you are on an even keel. That regardless of everything that's the slings and arrows that are coming at you, you're maintaining your focus as you've always done and working on the next book. But what I'm wondering is there any moment where you have felt a little bit shaken in your confidence, let's put it that way, and not in your confidence in your ability to be a good writer, but rather in your confidence of knowing what kind of writer you are or what it is that you want to engage with? Maybe because of some of the criticism you've received, like, for example, having Spanglish in your books, but maybe also just because with a wider audience, you might feel pressure to, like, broaden your own, thematic, I don't know, canvas, right? Like, I need to be writing a bigger book now because I have a bigger audience. Has anything like that happened?
Yeah, what's it? The Great American Novel. I need to write the Great American Novel.
Mm-hmm.
No, but I think that's just pure luck. I've been and I don't want to bring the conversation now, but I've been, for example, on suicide watch with friends of mine, where it's like you don't let go of your phone because someone's struggling, and you have to be there for them. But no one has been on suicide watch for me because I'm just wired differently. And I have a lot of friends who suffer from mental illness. It's something that they're born with. It's something they can't just get up in the morning and say, I'm going to be positive today. I'm going to have a positive outlook. It's they're hunted by those demons, and it's just something that they have to deal with. So I'm lucky that I don't suffer from that, and I'm also lucky that at some point, right around, I don't know, my junior year maybe in high school, um, probably the beginning of my senior year, someone told me I was never going to go to college. This is a person who worked at the school, and she had to help us, navigate what was going to happen after high school. She said I had no English skills, so if I was going to try to go to college, I should aim low and local. And at that point, I went, well, there's two things that I can do now. I can become depressed and not go to college. My mom didn't go to college. My dad didn't go to college. Or I can prove this person wrong. And I always opt for that.
Yeah.
And then in 2008, when I moved to the States and I started writing in English, it was, you have to change your name because you have too many vowels in your name. You're never going to make it as a writer. When I started writing in Spanish, you have to cut that out. Don't talk about politics. Don't do excessive violence. Stop making everybody brown and black and queer because that doesn't sell. Stop doing those things. And it was never about like, oh my God, what kind of writer am I? What am I going to do now? It was like, all right. So if I put like in The Devil Takes You Home, there's a trans character. If my trans character makes you angry, I'm not going to change that because it makes you angry. That's on you. So
Yeah.
what I am going to do is maybe if I go to your city, I'm going to read the scene with the trans character. If the if the Spanish makes you angry, I'm going to put a little bit more of that Spanish in the next book. So I'm just gonna do things to spite people, and that
Yeah.
keeps me happy. I feel
Well,
like if I'm pissing off the right people, I'm doing my job correctly.
I agree with you. I mean, I feel as though spite is underrated as a motivator for writers, and not just like, I mean, for like entire careers, right? Like, I'm going to show that person, or I'm going to, in a way, it's kind of like, remember that episode of Seinfeld where George just decides like his own judgment is so flawed that he's just going to do the opposite of everything he would normally do, and it turns out to lead to great success for him. What you are doing is like charting your course by doing the opposite of what everybody else is telling you to do. They're like,
Exactly.
it's just great. Well, it's worked so far. But
It's
I
worked so
mean,
far.
I don't mean to be flippant about it, because it's not as though you're testing the waters and then
Right.
choosing which way to go on the basis of that. You're consulting an internal compass that nonetheless is being opposed by a lot of people for stupid reasons. So let me just shift over to Melissa really quick, because I know you have had also controversy with your book, and your book is a wonderful YA, or it might even be a middle grade book, and
Yeah, it's upper middle grade.
yeah, and it's tell us a little bit about your travails and triumphs with that book, if you don't mind.
Everything Gabino just said, I'm laughing at with so much empathy, because what is going on in publishing right now? I just don't understand it. So yeah, this charming little upper middle grade novel that I just had published, Daisy Woodworm Changes the World, was banned because a minor character has two mothers, as I grew up with two mothers, and people are just losing their marbles about this. And I've been accused of grooming young people. Um, and I too have been called to Jesus on numerous occasions. I have been told I'm going to hell for corrupting young minds. And so I like what you had to say about spite. And yeah, success is not all it's cracked up to be, is it? I agree that you just have to keep focused and write the next book, but also have a good time with your critics, as you're talking about.
Yeah. No, I hope they hate you for what's the term they're using? You're pushing the LGBTQ agenda.
Oh, I'm grooming them.
Grooming. So
Yeah.
what they should do is, like, everybody who's angry should buy 10 copies and burn them. And then that way you can sell like 2 million copies and laugh all the way to the bank.
I like that.
Yeah.
How do we
Let
make
them
that
express
happen?
their hatred. Just buy 10 copies and burn them all.
Well, what was it that Franklin Roosevelt said about his critics? I relish their hate, something like that. And I feel like that's really the only healthy attitude for a writer, or else you're gonna I don't know, sink into depression, or you'll just be too paralyzed to continue writing. But where does that faith in your vision, in the rightness of what you're doing, where does that come from, do you think, for each of you?
Oh, go ahead, Gabino.
Oh, awesome. That's a great question. I think at some point we all sit there and we write our first novel, or we start tackling short stories, and we talk about a lot of talk about this a lot in some of our classes, which is finding your voice. And I think a lot of times we might get distracted by what sells, what do I enjoy, and early on I think we all have those stories where we're either trying out, this is what I think might be successful for me, or you reread an old story and you're like, wow, I was reading a lot of which I see in my students from time to time. I was reading a lot of Hemingway back then, and this is like really, it's like dollar store Hemingway what I produced. But then you keep going, and then you realize that those stories aren't yours, that you were just like sort of mimicking your early writing heroes. And at some point you find that first story that really sinks to your heart, and you find a way to tell it in a way that you love it, and you forget about everybody else. You forget about everything that you've ever read, and you read that story out loud, and you think about these characters that you created in your head, and you spent so much time with them, and then suddenly you put all that effort at the beginning, and it led to nothing, and suddenly you found your voice. When you find that, it doesn't have to appeal to anybody else, it doesn't have to fall. I was criticized early on because I was in love with horror, but I was also in love with crime and thrillers and noir, and I wasn't supposed to mix them because those are separate genres. I'm still mixing them to this day. I created my own genre so I could tell people I'm not doing any of that, I'm doing my own thing. And when you find that, you found your voice, and then the more you work on your voice, making it better, pulling those stories from your soul, you learn to just ignore everything else and everyone else, because it's sort of, this is exactly what I want to do, and I'm starting to sound the way that I wanted to sound, and these are the stories that I want to tell. And then as long as you focus on that and accept that writing is just a war of attrition, and you just have to keep going and getting better. No one starts out being good. Like, you're not going to be great during your first couple of stories, because it's not about being great from the start. It's about getting better with each consecutive story. So you take those two things and you just push forward and ignore everything else. There's too much going on, and we only have one brain. So I can't do laundry, get groceries, read reviews, pay attention to email, grade, read hate mail, and then also write. So you have to separate your time. It's like, I'm going to grade, and then I'm going to get groceries, and I'm going to write, and I'm going to ignore the rest of the world. And if you can do that, you're set for life. You're going to be happy, and the stories are going to be your stories.
Yeah, a lot of what you're talking about is that ability to compartmentalize, to start the new novel even as you are aware of the hate mail piling up in the inbox. I think that's a really valuable skill. For myself, I'm stubborn. And my mom was a journalist and really encouraged me to put my voice out there in a big way from a very young age. And I have written nonfiction and fiction my whole life in the service of marginalized demographics. So it's been pretty easy for me to separate my ego from the demographics I hope my writing is serving. And I think you have to do that, especially when you're just starting out and you're being asked to promote your stories and your novels and build a website and jacket copy and all of that. You've got to get your ego out of the way and realize that your job is to educate, inspire, and entertain readers. And keeping that in mind makes all of this much easier, makes it much easier to compartmentalize, and don't even read the hate mail if you don't want to. Just see the subject line, hit delete, and empty your inbox trash, and you'll never even have to see it. There's no shame in that.
Yeah, I mean, what you say about ego is interesting, because I feel as though writers are a curious combination of ego and fragility. Oftentimes, writers are crushed by say a bad review, and yet they're driven to put themselves in a position where they're going to receive a bad review potentially. They have to have the confidence in believing that I've got something to say, I've got something worth saying, whereas a lot of people are telling them, no, you don't. And yet too much ego, or ego wrongly applied, is going to mess with your writing. It's going to screw you up. It's going to mess up your career, and you will stop writing in an honest way. I mean, that's one of those terms that's hard to define. What does that mean, right? Honestly. But I think, kind of to follow along what Gabino was saying earlier, I mean, I think it kind of means, if you're writing honestly, you're writing in service to your voice. And it's difficult to, students often ask, like, well, what is that? What is voice? How do I find my voice? And it's very difficult to explain to them what voice is exactly, because it's different for everybody, but you know it when you hear it, right? Like, I think I would bet that the three of us have an experience, and maybe even remember precisely, like, where were you when you first felt, this is my voice? I know it. I hear it. That's me. It's not just me. It's the writer I want to become.
Yeah.
Is beginning to speak to me now.
Yeah.
When was that?
For me, it was with my second book. So, oh gosh, maybe 18 years ago. And right away I knew, oh yeah, this is the voice I want to embrace. Yeah. I could feel echoes of my vaudevillian comic great grandparents in this voice.
Awesome.
And with a bit of the Muppet Show for good measure. But also them because I have an undergrad focus on poetry. So kind of a blend of those and poignancy. But yeah, definitely with my second book, not so much the first one.
I love that mix, Melissa. For me, it was 2014. I was living in a 240 square foot apartment writing Serial Saints, and I kept struggling the first couple of chapters. I hear characters in my head, and then I try to read the dialogue out loud because sometimes, you do the dialogue in your head is not dialogue in the real world, so we must read out loud and fix that. And I kept stopping to translate words because the characters were speaking Spanglish in my head, and they were just like boom, 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 and I would have to interrupt them to find the word that I was looking for and translate. And then at one point, I said, screw this. This is like a Puerto Rican talking to a Mexican in the United States. They can switch. We all code switch. Like, this is not my native tongue. There's no reason if I was talking to someone who, English is also not their first language, why we wouldn't do this. And I already had the horror/crime hybrid going. And the moment I said, I'm just going to spit out my dialogue and not translate absolutely anything when it doesn't come to me, I finished that writing session and I sat back and I said, all right, so what I wrote today sucks. But when I fix it, this is what I want to sound like. It's this mix of identities and cultures, and I don't have to write for everybody else because it was 2 blocks away from a Walgreens. The Walgreens had a book rack. Like, those people are entirely writing in English. So if you want that type of book, you can go to your Costco or your Sam's Club or Walgreens and get that type of literature. I'm never going to have my books in the Walgreens bookshelves. So I don't have to try to write like those folks. I can just be free and do this. And I haven't stopped because it just feels natural.
Yeah, that's great. And I mean, that's exactly right. That's what it feels like. It's like, it's natural. I mean, when you're just starting out as a writer, you're trying so hard that you can almost not be natural. It's almost impossible. You're trying too hard. And you have to go through that. But at a certain point, it's like you said, you're just like, well, screw this, right? And that's when everything that you've struggled so hard to learn starts to take a back seat, but it's still there. And then your real voice comes out. Gabino, let me ask a question from the Q&A here. This is from Cassandra, who asks, would you recommend using a mix of languages? I ask this because the piece I plan on using for the thesis project has a lot of Korean influences. I am learning Korean, and I am using the Korean words romanized. So I'm curious about your thoughts on that.
If you think the experiences and the identity and the culture of that character demands it, then do it. I'm not saying, I have a sci-fi about an assassin alien. I'm just going to throw Russian in there to make it fun. Not the way to go about it. If your characters sort of tell you, this is my story, this is my culture, this is my language, then do it. And here's how I try to explain it to some folks. If you know someone whose native language is not English, ask them what language they use to speak to their parents. If they're religious, ask them what language they use to pray, and ask them what language shows up when they dream. If they don't say English, then that other language sort of belongs in their narratives. Because if not, you're just it's a very ugly word that I hate to use, but if you try to yank that out, you're just whitewashing the narrative. So instead of giving us, a Korean experience, you're doing the whole, well, it's a Korean who never met anybody from Korea, whose grandparents were dead when they were born, and they grew up in a white school in Milwaukee, and they never saw any Korean television or read Korean. Their parents didn't want them to speak Korean because they didn't want them to have an accent. That's a different type of story. That's someone who's been yanked away from their culture. If that's not the case, then the Korean belongs in there because it's at the heart and soul of your characters.
Paul, do you want me to ask that other one?
Yeah, go ahead.
So Mark Reynolds wants to know, how do you choose what to write about? Does it just come to you as you're starting to write, or do you have an outline in mind before writing?
This is a great question because the class that I'm teaching right now, where they just turned in their plot outlines, and I have some students that are struggling, like, I've never done one of these. And I go, don't worry, you pulled it off. You have to learn how to do it. All right. When you go to your doctor and your doctor sends you to a specialist, that specialist had to learn all the other stuff as well. So you learn how to do a plot outline, and then you don't have to use it. So I feel some kind of they're my kin spirits when I have those students in class, because I get this truly amazing, like, bullet point by bullet point plot outlines from the natural plotters. Like, they can envision the whole novel, and they turn in like 4 pages, and they know how things are going to go. They know where the twist is. They've already mentally opened some doors, and they've arranged everything. And then you have the students that are like me, like, I kind of know what happens at the beginning, the middle, and the end, and all of the connective tissue is a mystery, and I'm just gonna wing it and see what happens. So the plot outlines are not for you. In 5 books, I have never used one. I tried to write an outline once, and I ran out and punched my neighbor out of frustration. So don't it's just learn how to do it, and then don't do it if you don't have to, because it's
Your neighbors will
yeah.
thank you.
Your neighbors will thank you, and you won't go to jail. So that's always good.
But there's also times like a few years ago, I got hired to write a for hire novel with a very tight turnaround time. And there was no way I could have written that, even though I normally do not have massive outlines, but I could not have written that novel within the time allotted to me if I didn't know how to make an outline. And I knew that, hey, this is, I'm not putting 100% of myself into this book anyway, but I still have to know how to write this outline, because I have a novel to write in 3 months. I've got to do it. So it can come in handy to know it, even if it's something that's at the bottom of your toolbox. The day may come when you want to dust it off.
Learn everything.
Do learn everything. My agent just sold my next book last week, and we had a meeting.
Congratulations.
Today. Oh, thank you. And the first thing the editor said to me is, I would like an outline in the next 2 weeks.
Oh, gosh. No, you bought it already. I don't have to outline now.
Hart thing, but she's right. So
Uh,
just do it. I forget what class we asked this of, but just do it.
So, yeah, that's a good. You're gonna sit down and you're gonna do it, and then yeah.
There's I think is there another question? Yeah, well,
there's a couple more questions.
Oh,
you want to take another one of
Somebody-
them?
What, Gabino, what was the querying process like for your latest novel?
It wasn't. In 2008, I finished my first novel, and I spent a year and a half, 2 years trying to get an agent. And when I realized that wasn't working, I moved on. I was like, I need to keep going. This is I don't mean to sound like a cliche. This is the land of opportunity. There are so many amazing small indie presses willing to look at your manuscript without an agent. Even bigger presses, if you pay attention online, they will have 1 month out of the year where they take just stuff from people that are not with an agent. And I did that, and Serial Saints and Coyote Songs came out with a smaller press, which has a lot of problems that we can talk about at some other point in time. But the point was, I got them out into the world. And then my wonderful agent, Melissa Danasco, wrote an email to me out of the blue as I was finishing Coyote Songs. And she said, a friend of mine recommended Serial Saints. I absolutely loved it. Are you working on anything? And being the idiot that I am, I said, well, I'm about to finish a book, but it already has a home. I'll let you know about the next one. So when I had about 40,000 words of The Devil Takes You Home, I got in touch with her and I said, hey, remember you were waiting for this? Here's 40,000 words if you want to take a look. And she said, I absolutely love it, but I cannot offer representation without a finished manuscript because God knows what's going to happen between here and the end. So go finish it. And this is probably early 2020, maybe late 2019. And in March, I was told I was being let go. I was a high school teacher. Pandemic was raging. No one was hiring. So between June and maybe October, I finished and edited that novel, sent it to her, and I think she read it in like 3 days. And then we signed, and the rest is history. And without
Wow.
without Melissa, I don't know what I'd be doing because, you know, another indie press would have not, it would have been an awesome opportunity. It would have been a new book. It wouldn't have changed my life the way that going through the agent process and having the book sell at auction and doing all those stuff. Yeah, it was an entirely different experience thanks to her.
Yeah. And you're working on, have you just finished or you're still putting the finishing touches on your next book?
The next one is done. The editor liked it, but you know what editors do? The editors build you up, and then they send you an editorial letter to break you down and tell you everything that was missing on that first draft. So I'm about, I would say, a week away from finishing the edits on the next one.
Great.
Yeah.
And when is that slated to come out?
Probably summer. I don't want to say a month because I don't know. Summer of 2024.
Okay.
Yeah. It's a long time, but also not that long.
Yeah,
So
it's not that long. Yeah, it'll be here before you know it.
yes, which
You'll
means
be-
that as soon as this one is in, I have to start working on the next one.
That's right. You'll be sharing your cover on Twitter before too long, or whatever succeeds Twitter.
Whatever's around at the time.
Yeah, exactly. So let's see what other, we have a few other questions in here. Oh, Melissa put this resource in the Q&A for
What a bunch.
yeah, that is a great resource. I use that a lot myself. You know, one of the benefits that you get as an MFA student, here I'm going to drop a little advertisement into this for those who may be listening and considering, should I get an MFA at SNHU? I mean, let me just say, first of all, do you need an MFA to be a good writer, to be a successful writer? Absolutely not. Should you get an MFA? It's completely up to you. It can be very helpful in some ways. It helps you with craft. It helps with networking. It can shorten your apprenticeship appreciably. But anyway, one of the benefits that we offer here is like students who are in their final thesis course get to meet with an agent and pitch their manuscript. And so twice a year, I go out with my cap in hand and ask agents if they would be willing to come and meet virtually with our students in one-on-one sessions to hear pitches of their books. And that's where I go, manuscript wish list. And I look at, you know, which agents are interested in the genres that we teach, and I get those agents, then they're always happy to come in. Agents are amazing people because, I mean, you hear a lot of horror stories about them. I'm sure some of them are true, but by and large, they love books and they love writers, and they really want to help writers succeed, and they do.
And also, Paul is our dean, and as such, he has learned to say all the right things in a very diplomatic way.
Mhm.
But I will say this: I have traveled the country, going to other MFAs to teach workshops, to talk to students, to be invited professor for a week. And at some of these other programs that shall remain nameless, genre is frowned upon.
Yes.
So if you do want to get an MFA and you write romance, YA, horror, sci-fi, fantasy, then come to SNHU because you're my kind of freak, and we are more than happy to talk about the stuff that people really want to write. We're not going to be frowning upon anything that you write, and I do say that with an open heart because I've been here for I'm young, Paul. Don't make me feel old again. I've been here for a couple of years,
Yeah.
and I've worked with a lot of writers writing romance and sci-fi and horror and really creative narratives. And we celebrate genre at
Yeah.
SNH.
No,
So
we're a very
yeah.
open-minded program. You know, we even let literary fiction in.
I do want to say that one of the finest microbursts of flash fiction pieces I've ever received in the MFA program, I am not joking, was a romance between two cats.
Uh-huh.
I'm serious. It was a thing of beauty. Naomi wants to know how we get the juices flowing on ideas.
All right, I'll get started. There's life. I know it sounds like a cliche answer. If I'm reading something on the news and it makes me angry, I try to channel that anger. So I can't punch Ted Cruz in the face. I can't, cancel the Supreme Court. So I have all this anger that I need to get out somehow. And I've always wanted to entertain. When I was in school, I wrote a story that got me in trouble, and people had really visceral reactions to it. And I realized the power of words when I was in that trouble. Um, so the juices are always ready to go. The trick is to find time and to allow them to get running. So when I do finally have time, the real difficult thing is realizing I have 10 ideas, but I need to be honest with myself and realize that maybe 5 or 6 of them are not that good. And then maybe one or two, I actually read something a couple years ago that kept turning in my head, and that story's not mine. So I need to find out who it belongs to so I never touch it. And then you're left with like 2 or 3. And out of those 2 or 3, maybe one of those or two of those are short stories and not novels. Uh, so you have to do a lot of soul searching and pick the ideas that Jack Ketchum, the great horror writer, rest in peace. Jack Ketchum told me once, short stories are fun because they're a one night stand, but every novel is a marriage, and you're
Hmm.
gonna be in there for a while. So when I finally decide, this is the one that I'm gonna run with, I know I'm stuck with it. So do that inner sort of exercise, and the music helps, walking helps, reading helps. Like if you're not reading, you shouldn't be writing. Like read as much as possible. Read all day, every day. The back of your cereal box, your shampoo bottle, the internet, books, novels, poetry. If you write romance, go read hardcore horror. If you read horror, go read fantasy. Read across the board, and that will get you in the mood to write. And once you can hit that mood, then try to find the time, which is the hardest thing.
I
Yeah.
second the exercise suggestion. Long distance running and long distance biking and hiking for me. Quickest way to think of a new story or figure out a plot twist or deepen a character. Yeah, get away from the laptop.
Yeah. I'm also a runner, Melissa, and
I know it.
I find like definitely a lot of plot problems, a lot of not even problems, but just twists and reveals, character backstory. A lot of things become clear in the middle of a run.
Yeah,
So I consider running to be part of writing for
I
me.
do too.
And I think every writer probably has some occupation that for normal people is like a hobby or exercise or something. But for writers, it's like, no, it's just another part of writing. I
It's
mean,
all writing.
yeah, it's all writing. It's all writing all the time.
Yeah.
I remember when I was younger, I used to hear about like people who were like I don't know, like a chess champion or something who was like studying, 30 hours every day to like, bone up on their chess game to be world champion. And I was always think, well, where did they find the time to write? It just didn't occur to me that there were people out there that were not interested in writing. Um, and I guess now I know that there are. I still don't understand them, but there are.
Is it okay if we ask a few more questions from?
Let's do it.
Okay, so is there any, Gabino, do you have any advice for a first-time horror genre writer? And I don't quite understand the rest of this, but quote, within the poetry side, unquote.
Amanda,
Oh, I
so I
guess
guess
horror poetry.
you run a horror poetry. I love horror poetry. There's a
Oh,
reason why
okay.
they give Stokers to poetry every single year. We have Stephanie Witovich.
I was going to
The
just
most,
say
yeah,
Stephanie's an
she's an
instructor here.
amazing horror poet. Um, Horror is life. Horror is absolutely everywhere. It's in romance when it doesn't work out. It's in crime because people get hurt and people get killed and do awful things. It's absolutely everywhere. So read a lot of horror poetry. The second thing is anything that you think should be in your poems, it belongs. Because I see a lot of people trying to attempt to write some sort of horror, and the first thing that they start thinking about is like, I need to write the stuff that scares people. You don't know what scares people. No one knows. So for some folks, it's like haunted houses and zombies and ghosts and demonic possession, and that's fine. But for some other folks, it's like loss, grief, poverty, cancer, sickness, their loved ones getting hurt. So find the stuff that makes you uncomfortable, the stuff that makes you feel unsettled, and then start writing from there, because that's the stuff that's going to stick. When I read a poem, and I know that the person was slightly uncomfortable with writing it because like the topic was close to their heart, or it brought up some memories, or they really felt scared. Go with that. Read a lot and go with the stuff that you think makes you the most uncomfortable, and that will allow you to write some of the most powerful, punchy horror poetry.
Yeah, I mean, that advice holds for fiction as well, I think.
Yeah.
Looking at other questions, when did you first, oh, I'm sorry. When you first began writing novels, how much time did you dedicate to practicing your craft and writing the novel?
This is a good question, but it's also a bad question for me because I would love to have like this structured answer. Um, Writing is, especially if you spend time online, it's full of rules. So I've heard you're supposed to write in the morning, and I've heard you're supposed to write at night. I write whenever I can. So you're supposed to write for 2 hours. You're supposed to write it for 8 hours on the weekends. I've done both. I've also written 30,000 words in 25-minute increments while teaching 4 classes in high school with one hand, because you're supposed to type with two, but I had to eat my sandwich. So I was typing with one hand. So there are no rules. That's the main rule for writing. You need to find what works for you. So when I started out, I was first of all, I was trying to learn to think in a different language because I was switching languages for my writing. Second of all, I was getting my PhD. I was also teaching because I was a TA at UT Austin, and that only paid about $900 a month, and Austin is not a very cheap city. So I was working as a journalist for the Austin Post. So I wrote from like midnight to 2 a.m. I would turn off all the lights and get some weird music going. Then I started for a period for like about a year. I only wrote. I was broke. I couldn't afford the internet, so I went to the library. So when I was at the library, I could do research and other stuff. So I worked for like an hour on my university stuff, and then always wrote at the library. Um, Write whenever, wherever you can. Learn how to use the notes on your phone. Learn how to dictate stuff into your own email.
Yeah.
I really wish I had a super well organized answer, but the answer is find whatever works for you. When I was starting out, I wrote for the first year and a half, probably between midnight and 2 a.m. almost every single day. From there, it was like in the afternoons at the library. Then I started getting jobs. So it was like either during lunch or try to write a bunch during the weekends. Uh, Now I love writing at hotels because I spend a lot of time on the road. But yeah, I spent any amount of free time that I had at night writing. If you have a job, a family, a significant other, some pets, and you're getting a degree, my guess would be night times are the only times that you do have. So I'm sorry, no one likes to talk about it, but writing is about sacrifices. So goodbye Hulu, Netflix, Prime, and naps, and get to writing.
Yeah. Do you have time for maybe one more question?
Let's do it. I think we have time.
I like this one a lot. So Janelle says, I'm just starting to get questions from people about my self-published book, and it's exciting, but I find myself getting really nervous about saying something wrong/stupid. How do you stay confident when talking about and publishing your writing? That's it.
That's a great question. I'm a mediocre musician, and I've read a lot of writing by musicians, like famous, jazz musicians and flamenco musicians. Sometimes you messed up as a musician, but the people listening to you don't know. Uh, so focus on that. Like maybe you sound stupid to yourself, but if you keep going, you can fix it. Um, and also, no one has all the answers, whether it's a big four publishing, smaller indie presses, self-publishing. No one has all the answers. If you're doing self-publishing, the amount of stuff that you have to learn, from like how to work with ISBN numbers to the cover to layout to editing to putting it out, what platform you're going to use, you are a student of the game just like everybody else. So learn as much as you can about self-publishing, and when people start asking you questions, it's because they want to know. So never be afraid to tell folks, I'm going to find that answer for you, but I don't have it right now. I was really scared when I started teaching here because my knowledge of romance as a genre was, well, it needs to have a happy ending, and it kind of boiled down to that. So I was always scared that I was going to get romance students in my class who were going to know so much more than me. So I went and I looked at the business side of romance, and then I read a whole bunch of romance novels, and then I developed that. And am I going to say something stupid? Well, I'm human, so at some point someone's going to know more than me, and they might find something that I say stupid. But you just keep going, and then tomorrow you might sound a little bit smarter. So don't focus too much on that, because if we were all too afraid of saying something stupid, we would never open our mouths. So good luck to you with the self-publishing, and just keep at it, share your knowledge, and you'll be fine.
I'm going to ask one more question here. This is a pretty good one, I think, from Joshua Franklin. I'm reading The Devil Takes Me Home right now and loving it. But I've had to step away from it for a day or so to process the dark stuff. And then in parentheses, he says, I'm the guy on Twitter who said it was making me tear up during my daughter's dance recital. So do you ever find you have to, do you ever find you have to step away from a project to handle it or avoid the pain of it?
I've never had to step away, but I will say this. Just like we joked about, the negative reviews and the hate mail and all that stuff, I find it really, really hard to be productive and to do my best work if my mental health is not where it needs to be. So I will write the most horrific, like, I apologize if you have a kid, I apologize to you and to your daughter for chapter 11. I didn't I don't want to scare people out of my work with a little bit of child mutilation. I kill a lot of folks in my book. There's a lot of sadness and anger and grief, and there's a part of that feels like therapy, but there's also a part of that sticks with you. So when I'm done, I turn off the laptop and I turn on the light, and the dark music goes away. I've learned through the years that some of that darkness sticks with you. So you might be a little angry. You might be a little angry. You reply, like you snap at people because you're still in that frame of mind. So get a good cup of coffee, watch your favorite show, play with your daughter, go for a walk. I walk the dog like 3 times a day, listen to the birds, hang out with your friends, go listen to a kid's laughter. Do something that helps you get back in the right frame of mind. Because there's some stuff that we're basically mining our own souls for some of the darkest tidbits to share with the world. And at some point we go like, yeah, this hurts a lot, so I'm going to stay in this pocket here where it really hurts and write about this stuff and hurt other people. And then someone tells you, you know, like, I cried reading this book, and then you go like, yes, mission accomplished. Also, I'm sorry, that wasn't like the main goal. So it's like this very delicate balance where you need to like do the most horrible stuff possible on the paper for all the right reasons, and also protect your mental health, because that's where you do your best work. That's when you can help others. That's why you can be a very good, positive, encouraging member of the literary scene, and you can just be a good person to everybody around you while also writing chapter 11. So yeah, it's a delicate balance.
I mean, that's
So good
kind of
luck to you
amazing.
and to your daughter.
That's one of the amazing things really about the horror community, is like how supportive that community is, and how everybody in that community will go to bat for each other. And just it's kind of it's surprising in a way, because you would think just from the stereotype of a horror writer that they would just be a bunch of like, you know, misanthropic iconoclasts or something, but they're really not. And I think that just speaks to the sense that, I don't know, horror is a very misunderstood genre. I think it has a lot of people have a knee-jerk reaction to it, but those who read it understand, I think, that it's a lot more than just the terrible stuff that happens in it, or can be. Well, on that note, folks, I think we'll wrap it up for tonight. This has been an incredible evening. I want to thank Gabino and thank Melissa for joining us tonight. And Gabino, best of luck with the next one. Best of luck at the Edgars, or rather the Stokers. And Melissa, good luck on your new one.
Thank you.
Likewise, and to you too, Melissa.
And thanks so much to all of our listeners.
Yep, thank you for coming. Y'all have a good one.